In a twist of fate, Saito, a young handyman from Japan, finds himself transported to a fantasy world where he must use his skills to become an indispensable member of a seemingly dysfunctional adventuring party. An eclectic dungeon-delving party consisting of Saito, a human transported into this world, Morlock, a powerful but amnesic old wizard, a tiny magical fairy named Laufenpan, and an armed warrior named Rielza stand outside a locked door deep in a dungeon. Saito, the newest member of the group, opens up his tool bag and produces a lockpicking kit. The others look on, wondering if Saito's approach will work when, to their collective amazement, he manages to unlock the door easily. They rush into the room where they spot a locked treasure chest, which they urge Saito to pick. He obliges by quickly stepping up and working on the lock. As he fiddles with the mechanism, he smiles and remembers a job he did back on Earth. A lady had locked herself out of her house and called his place of work to help let her back in. Saito made quick work of the lock, but when it came time for payment, the unappreciative women refused to pay the full amount and began haggling for a discount. While working on unlocking the chest, Saito realizes that being an important member of this party and his skills being needed made him feel more fulfilled in this life than he had in his old one. The treasure chest is opened, but turns out to be a disguised monster. The mimic rushes to attack Saito, but Rielza pulverizes it with one swing. Saito notices that Rielza's helmet is loose and asks her to take it off. She hesitates a bit before handing it to him. It turns out that Rielza is a beautiful young girl with a scar on her face that she's very self-conscious of. While Saito works on fixing her helmet, he reveals that his primary profession was not that of a locksmith, but a handyman. Impressed, Rielza gazes in admiration as Saito goes about his work. Outside the dungeon, Saito, Rielza, and Laufenpan have a conversation about Morlock. Morlock used to be a great wizard who had already once retired. As the highest level member of the party at an impressive level 83, compared to Rielza's 41, Laufen's 35, and Saito's level 8, he's exceptionally valuable, but he's also a massive liability thanks to his horrendously bad memory along with some of his antics, which range from forgetting which party he was a member of to joining a group of undead because he forgot he was still alive. During the walk back to town, Morlock hurts his back and asks Laufey to heal him. She obliges but insists on being paid a gold coin for her service. Watching her carry around a sack full of gold coins, Saito decides to make her a backpack. She's happy with the result, but gets upset when Saito asks her for nothing in return for his service. To placate her, he asks her to give Morlock's back some extra attention instead. Back in town a few days later, Saito impresses an item shop attendant, Mayvina, with his use of the abacus. A jealous Rielza, wondering what the two were up to, puts on different armor and walks into the shop, but is recognized instantly by Saito. Flustered, she runs out where she's scolded by Laufey and told to go in like a normal person. Laufey, meanwhile, is quite impressed by Saito's ability to pick out Rielza instantly. As the party delves regularly back into the dungeon, Saito begins to feel useless during the sections where the team encounter monsters, due to having no way of assisting them in combat. He starts searching for a way to be helpful to them, and quickly identifies a role he can fulfill. While Morlock is extremely powerful, he regularly forgets spell incantations, causing the rest of the party to scramble in order to make up for the sudden gap in their offense. Saito asks Morlock to teach him his spell incantations so that despite being unable to use magic himself, he can be ready at a moment's notice to assist the old wizard in remembering the invocations. They test their new battle strategy, and to everyone's joy, succeed in pulling it off in splendid fashion. The party happens across an area where they're unable to use magic and find a locked treasure chest. While the rest are weary of a trap, Saito insists on attempting to open it. Fiddling with the lock, a trap is indeed activated and he falls down a hole in the ground, landing deep inside the labyrinth into a shallow pool of water. While he lays there with a broken leg, memories of his old life flip through his head with people insisting that he was no one special and could be replaced with someone else at a moment's notice. Tears begin to well up in his eyes when suddenly the rest of his party anxiously come rushing through a tunnel toward him. He confesses thinking that no one would come for him, for which they call him a fool, telling him he's irreplaceable. On one of their adventures, they come across a slimy, multi-headed reptilian monster that Rielza has a phobia of. Morlock electrocutes the beast as Saito steps up and uses a sword to attack the monster until it finally falls. While the rest of the party prepares to leave, Saito starts chopping off a large chunk of meat from the carcass to prepare it as food. The rest are disgusted by the idea because in their experience the meat had a horrendous taste. But Saito manages to prepare it using techniques from Earth that bring out its taste, and it becomes a huge hit within the party. Meanwhile, in a distant kingdom, a demon king appears. To defeat him, the king posts a help wanted sign for a hero, but no one shows up. With an invasion incoming, the king decides to take care of it himself, leaving his minister in charge. In his absence, a rebellion commences but is quickly squashed by the minister. When the king returns, he sees a bunch of petrified statues in his throne room, which the minister remarks will be picked up by trash collectors the next day. The king then moves on with his business, that being to play a chess match with the head of the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord asks for his execution schedule, but is told there's no need for that since they got along so well. The Demon Lord is then given a fake body and the role of the Knight Commander, so the two can hang out in peace. Saito's party camps out at night around a fire roasting meat and mushrooms when yet again, Morlock hurts his back. He asks Lafa to heal him, but does not have the money to pay her for her services. When she refuses, Saito steps in to pay in Morlock's stead. While unsatisfied, Lafa heals the old warlock and then later that night flies off somewhere. Back at camp, Saito asks Raelza about Lafa's obsession with money. In response, she tells Saito to follow her. She brings him to a clearing where Lafa is given the gold coin she'd received as an offering to the moon. Raelza reveals that Laufenpant's race, the Moonlight Fairies, were cursed by the goddess of the moon. They're forced to give an offering every full moon, otherwise they keep shrinking in size until they're no longer than a grain of sand. Saito is shocked by this and requests that some of his share of the treasure be distributed to Lafa, as he does the least amount of work. But he's told that Lafa is too prideful to accept any charity. To compromise, he starts asking her to cast a blessing on him before he opens any locked chest, as a precaution, but also an excuse to pay her. On one such expedition, Saito unlocks a chest, but despite the blessing, activates a trap that teleports him and Raelza to a separate portion of the dungeon. Their path is blocked by a powerful iron golem, who proves to be more than a match for Raelza. While she urges him to escape, Saito grabs onto the golem, takes a flask full of a rare metal-dissolving slime he previously encountered, and pours it on top of the automaton. While this damages the golem enough for Raelza to destroy it, the golem manages to grab a hold of Saito and crush his ribs. With Raelza panicking, Saito passes away. Realizing she needs to do something quickly, Raelza pulls out an extremely valuable medicine called the Drops of Life, given to her by Morlock. He had originally planned on using it, along with a mixture of other ingredients to heal her scar. But with no time, she quickly rips the cap off and pours the entire bottle into her mouth before transferring it all down Saito's. When Saito comes to, he sees Morlock and Lafa standing over him. He questions if Lafa was the one who had healed him, but is told that Raelza brought him back with a valuable medicine, though the method of delivery is top secret. One day, as Saito is pulling out a dead dragon's whiskers, his wire cutters break. One of the few tools he brought with him as he was transported. To fix the advanced tool, Morlock recommends an eccentric dwarven smith named Dawnbane. Due to his exceptional skills being undervalued by customers, the dwarf had decided to retire and lives deep in a cave behind a door with 108 locks. The party reaches his abode where Saito casually picks all the locks. Much to Dawnbane's shock, he decides to help fix the wire cutters for Saito. The wire cutters are returned to their original condition, and Saito, upon witnessing Dawnbane's skill, excitedly begins to ask for him to make one more thing, before suddenly deciding against it. While the dwarf cooks a meal for everyone, Saito confides in Raelza that he contemplated asking Dawnbane to make a gun for him. He realized that while that would allow him to be more helpful to the party, he ultimately did not wish to introduce guns to this world. Thus, he asks Raelza to teach him how to use a sword, only to realize that Raelza has passed out from drinking too much. Back on the surface, the party sits together at an inn, where Saito asks Morlock about the possible power that animated the iron golem they had encountered previously. Morlock is unable to guess, but Saito has a hunch that it may have been driven by a motor. To investigate, the team moved down to the 10th floor of the dungeon where they encountered the machine, only to find that its body had already been taken away by a third party. Just as Saito begins to apologize for wasting everyone's time, he hears a sound and jumps to grab the source. The thing that ends up in his hands is, to his surprise, a robotic vacuum cleaner from Earth. The robot slips from his hands and manages to flee from the group by entering a small hole in the dungeon wall. The party moves over to investigate the hole when Saito discovers something wrong with the wall. Upon closer inspection, it's revealed that the wall is a doorway disguised by magical camouflage. Morlock undoes the magic and reveals a new passageway never before discovered in the meticulously explored dungeon. This discovery is the first in many decades to expand the known size of the labyrinth, and thanks to his role in the discovery, the passage is named Saito's Tunnel. With this exciting discovery, adventurers from all over begin to flock back to the dungeon again. For their service, Saito's party is allowed free admission into the dungeon for the next 10 years. Among the many characters rushing to explore the dungeon is a party comprising the disguised demon lord and the kingdom's minister, who'd already arrived there at the king's request. The two manage to hunt and behead a legendary monster, the Silver Dragon, from the new area. The minister reveals that the newly discovered area contains the legacy of a magician that could manipulate time, and that it was important to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. As the two eat dinner by a campfire, they're ambushed by a ninja clad in black who manages to defeat them before they can respond. The ninja, Kisurugi, prepares to permanently destroy their bodies, but the minister succeeds in teleporting himself and the demon lord back to the castle, where they report their failure to the king. The king briefly contemplates going to the dungeon in person before realizing it would just cause more diplomatic issues and decides to abstain. Saito's party delves deeper into the new area, encountering powerful warriors along the way, including a party with a beast hunter named Leliza and a thief, Gwyver, as well as one consisting of an elf warrior, Flanriel, and a human priest, Ninia. They eventually reach the lower floors, where Saito finally finds the robot vacuum again. He chases after the vacuum, leaving his party members behind until he reaches a vast cavern filled with all sorts of items from Earth. He finds cars, billboards, a bicycle, and a small ship among other things, when he's suddenly attacked by the ninja Kisurugi and his magician companion, Primus. Lafa and Raelza rush in to protect Saito, with Morlock still some distance behind them, but face a losing battle, when they're suddenly assisted by a dwarf magician named Gabungle. Gabungle manages to land a powerful direct hit on Kisurugi, who appears to survive, mostly unharmed, but chooses to retreat. They all begin to thank the dwarf for his help when Morlock enters the cavern and is spotted by Gabungle. The dwarf, with wonder in his eyes, rushes over to Morlock, and to everyone's shock, calls the old wizard his master.